the silence of the Blackwood County woods isn't peaceful. It is heavy. For 2 years, the ghost of the 401 was less of a man and more of a localized nightmare. He didn't just kill. He erased. He targeted lone drivers at midnight rest stops, leaving behind cars so bleached of biological matter they smelled of nothing but ozone and industrial lye. No fingerprints, no struggle, just an empty driver's seat and a cold engine, until the fog rolled in on the night of June 12th. It started as a routine stop, broken tail light. The driver, Arthur Pendergast, didn't trigger a single alarm. He was soft-spoken, a librarian with manicured nails and a voice like velvet. He looked like the kind of man who would stop to help a wounded bird, not the kind who would snap its neck. Arthur was calm. He was too calm. When the officer asked where he was coming from, Arthur smiled, a thin, rehearsed line of a mouth, and claimed he was heading home from a late-night inventory shift at the university archives. But as Arthur reached into his glove box to retrieve his registration, his hand trembled for a fraction of a second. A small, silver object tumbled out, clinking against the gear shift before rolling onto the floor mat. "Is this yours, sir?" "That? A silly thing. A graduation gift for my daughter, Chloe. I must have forgotten to wrap it." The officer picked up the object, a delicate silver lapel pin shaped like a hummingbird. Its eyes were tiny rubies that seemed to catch the moonlight. Arthur took it back with a steady hand, thanked the officer for the warning, and vanished into the gray mist. But suspicion is a slow poison. It doesn't kill instantly. It waits for the right moment. We brought Arthur into the box 3 days later. We didn't use the overhead lights. We wanted him to feel the shadows. He sat there in his beige sweater, looking like a man wronged by a clerical error. But his eyes, they were static. Blank. "Arthur, we checked with the university. There was no inventory shift on the 12th. The archives were locked tight by 6 p.m. So, let's try again. Where were you?" I misspoke. I was at a bookstore, a private collector's shop. I lost track of time. Is it a crime to be a bibliophile detective? Not at all. But it is a crime to possess the property of a missing person. Let's talk about the hummingbird, Arthur. I told the officer, a gift for my daughter, class of 2022. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Detective Miller leaned in, his face inches from Arthur's. He slid a crime scene photo across the table. It was Elena Rossi, a vibrant young woman who had disappeared 4 months prior. In the photo, pinned to her scarf, was the silver hummingbird. We called the jeweler Arthur. These aren't mass-produced. Only 5 exist. Elena's father had this one custom engraved on the back. It doesn't say, "Graduation 2022." It says, "Fly home, Elena." Arthur's face didn't twitch, didn't break. It simply hardened into a mask of pure, clinical coldness. The librarian was gone. Something much older and much darker was sitting in that chair. You should have left it in the glove box, Arthur. But you had to give it a story. You had to make it part of your life. Why? Arthur leaned forward, his voice dropping into a guttural whisper that made the hair on the detectives' necks stand up. Because she was so loud, Detective. Even after she stopped breathing, the jingling of that pin in my pocket. It was like a heartbeat. I had to give it a new name. I had to make it mine so it would finally shut up. The mistake wasn't just the pin. It was the ego required to keep a trophy in a place as vulnerable as a glove box. Arthur Pendergast didn't just want to kill. He wanted to own. When the tactical teams breached his home, they didn't find a library. they found a cellar lined with soundproofing foam and industrial-grade drains. In a small, glass-fronted cabinet, Arthur had curated a museum of the vanished. Dozens of items, rings, locks of hair, a single blood-stained tooth, all meticulously labeled with the dates he had watched the light leave their eyes. The ghost wasn't a phantom, he was a collector, and his final acquisition was his own death sentence. He thought he was the author of the story. He didn't realize he was just the final chapter.